So Cedar Point just dropped some news that I think we were all expecting at this point, and that is that Top Thrill 2, which is of course the reimagining of Top Thrill Dragster, will continue to remain closed through the entirety of 2024, and is not expected to reopen until 2025. Now this comes after months of Zamperla continuing to work on the ride vehicles to get the coaster operating again. And even just a few days ago, Top Thrill 2 was seen testing at nighttime. As I alluded to in an earlier video about Top Thrill 2, and I think everyone knows by this point, there was an issue with the wheel carriers or wheel bogies, however you want to call them. Allegedly, these began developing stress fractures, and Zamperla later delivered a new version of them which features more reinforcement. And since then, the ride has been spotted testing with wiring all over the wheel assemblies, I guess as a part of a stress test, to see how the new wheel bogies have held up. And since then, we've also seen Zamperla reinforce on each car between row 1 and row 2, and that's what this steel bracing is here. As I've also heard that there may have been stress fractures with the chassis of the trains as well, which adding braces to the trains most certainly makes that seem true. So overall, as far as the ride vehicles have gone with Top Thrill 2, while they look extremely sleek, they just haven't seemed to work out on this attraction. And unfortunately, that's basically kept the coaster closed for all of 2024, as it only operated for a few days earlier in April and May of this year. And the really sad thing about that is that Top Thrill 2 was meant to be a much more reliable version of Top Thrill Dragster. And in a sense, it was when the ride did operate. The coaster would experience much less downtime than Top Thrill Dragster did. And even though it has a lower theoretical capacity than Dragster, I would guess that Top Thrill 2 on average gave more riders per day than Top Thrill Dragster did. Simply because when Top Thrill 2 was operating, it didn't have the amount of downtime that Top Thrill Dragster would. But even so, in Top Thrill Dragster's opening year in 2003, when the ride faced its most downtime ever, it still managed to give out 562,438 rides. And even with all its closures throughout that opening season, it still managed to operate throughout the entire year, where Top Thrill 2 maybe gave a tenth of that many riders and only operated for a few days. So I don't know, when I think about that statistic, I just find this situation sad. Now another thing to consider is that this isn't the first time that a new coaster had to be shut down for basically its entire first season. This happened quite a few times in the 1990s actually. Superman the Escape at Six Flags Magic Mountain, which we all know as Superman Escape from Krypton, was originally meant to open on June 1st, 1996, but it didn't officially open until March 15th, 1997 due to issues with the ride's new launch system. And then following that in 1997, Batman and Robin the Chiller at Six Flags Great Adventure opened briefly and was then shut down until 1998. And the other two premier launching shuttle coasters, which were Mr. Freeze at Six Flags Over Texas and Six Flags St. Louis, didn't open at all in 1997 as they were meant to, and all three of those premier launch coasters opened in 1998 instead. So this isn't the first time this has happened, but it's definitely crazy to live through this, as I was just a couple years old when that stuff happened in the 90s, so I wasn't actually there to experience it. But living through this now, it's definitely crazy. But in the long run, if Zamperla and Cedar Point are able to get Top Thrill 2 running reliably, we're eventually gonna kind of forget about this, as that's basically what happened with those four coasters I just mentioned that missed their opening years in the 1990s. But it definitely sucks right now in the moment. Due to the issues with the trains, it does seem like Zamperla does need to deliver a new chassis design, as somehow something didn't go right, which is shocking as all of the forces on the chassis and how the chassis would withstand those forces should have been modeled accurately by computers, especially in this day and age, but clearly something went wrong with that. Besides the ride vehicles, it does seem like the rest of the coaster is very reliable, and we saw that when Top Thrill 2 was operational earlier this year, as the coaster ran with far less downtime than Top Thrill Dragster did. So in that sense, Zamperla did deliver, but now of course we basically have Cedar Point throwing them under the bus, and I'm very curious what Zamperla's relationship going forward with the new Six Flags company will be, as we've seen how the former Cedar Fair can step away from certain ride manufacturers if that manufacturer delivered a product that wasn't up to Cedar Fair's expectations. The former Six Flags company always seemed more willing to take risks, and have even worked with manufacturers again after that manufacturer may have delivered them a less than stellar product. For example, Six Flags continued to work with Premier even after all the issues with the 1997 shuttle coasters. So I'm definitely very curious how Zamperla's new coaster division will perform following this Top Thrill 2 opening year, and whether they'll continue to sell more major rides. Now I'm sure there's a lot of people who are disappointed by Zamperla right now, but I honestly hope that they come back from this and that they do sell more coasters, as just having more options and competitors in the amusement space will continue to push the existing manufacturers to deliver even better products, and in the end it would hopefully be a win for us. I think time will tell once 2025 comes around and we see what Zamperla can do with Top Thrill 2. I'm personally still rooting for them, and I hope that they can fix the issues with the ride vehicles. And I'll tell you this, as soon as that ride is operating, I will definitely jump on the opportunity to get on it. Another thing I want to talk about also is that I always see people talking about why did Cedar Point go with Zamperla and not Intamin? And from what I've heard, Cedar Point did try to go with Intamin, and they tried to go with Intamin before they even contacted Zamperla. Now again, this is not confirmed, but this is just what I've heard. Apparently Cedar Point went to Intamin first, being that Intamin is the original manufacturer of Top Thrill Dragster. Intamin provided a proposal to redo Top Thrill Dragster, but Cedar Point actually didn't like their proposal, as apparently Intamin wanted the park to remove Iron Dragon and then extend Dragster's layout into that space. But Cedar Point didn't want to get rid of Iron Dragon, as it's one of the park's family coasters, and they still need to cater to that market. I've heard further that Cedar Point asked Intamin for another proposal, but Intamin sort of dragged their feet on that. And then in the meantime, Cedar Point went and contacted other manufacturers. And then when Zamperla presented the idea of a swing launch with a vertical spike, Cedar Point really liked that idea and they went with them. And another thing that I can't confirm if this is true or not, but I have heard that Cedar Point did spend a pretty penny on Top Thrill 2. So this was not a cheap reimagining. And I really hope that Zamperla is floating the cost of all of the work done to get Top Thrill 2 running again, as it's certainly gotta be expensive. Luckily for Zamperla, the rest of that company delivers so many different rides that hopefully they'll be okay, at least financially, but again, I'm very curious how their new coaster division does going forward, but I still wish them the best. Either way, you can't deny that Cedar Point took a risk by going with Zamperla for such a colossal ride, but at the time, I'm sure Zamperla's engineering basically proved that the ride should be successful, but obviously something went wrong somewhere along the way. I guess we'll have to add Top Thrill 2 to the much larger list of coasters that seem to be opening in 2025, as 2024 also lost the Flash Vertical Velocity at Six Flags Great Adventure, as well as Georgia Surfer at Six Flags Over Georgia. But those rides are not delayed due to technical issues, but simply because they weren't constructed in time. So hopefully 2025 is a great year for coasters, especially Top Thrill 2. I haven't gotten to experience Top Thrill 2 yet, and I'm sure most of you watching haven't gotten to ride it either. And from what I heard, it's fantastic. So I'm definitely still very eager to get on it, and I'm hopeful that Cedar Point and Zamperla can make that happen in 2025. So that'll do it for my thoughts on the Top Thrill 2 situation. And be sure to comment below your thoughts on this, as I'm sure you're all angry and upset, and I totally understand. In the words of Beavis and Butthead,
the fucks.
Yeah, me.
Yeah. So let's hope for the best that 2025 is good for Top Thrill 2. I'll be rooting for Zamperla so that they can get this thing running because I really want to ride it. And yeah, I guess this stuff kind of happens when you go with an experimental ride. But alright, thanks for watching everyone, and be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more nerdy content like this. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.